members' allowances and expense reimbursement policy for 25-26. And I'll hand over to our Group Manager of Finance, David Paris. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Worship. The report I'll take as read. The recommendations for the Council to confirm the remuneration as described in the report and adopt the elected members' allowances and expense reimbursement policy. The Remuneration Authority sets the Mayor's remuneration and the pool of funds that is available for elected members. And then the Council can allocate that pool of funding between the elected members. It's gazetted at Parliament, so we have to advise the Remuneration Authority. They gazette it in Parliament. It gets passed before Christmas, and then the amount that you get remunerated is adjusted from the base level that you're being paid at the moment. So there'll be a backdated payment before Christmas. So the division of responsibilities is based on your duties that you've decided in the previous report. The elected members' allowances and expense reimbursement policy is very similar to last time, but there's updated vehicle remuneration rates, and in fact there's 4 different types of vehicles you can now have, and they all have different rates, with hybrids and electric and diesel, as well as standard petrol cars. So I'm open for any questions in relation to the report.
Do we have any questions of David?
Yeah, that's a question.
Councillor Bowyer?
It's just an administrative thing. Page 42, participation and hearings allowance. Can we just check those figures are up to date?
2 of the agenda,
Yeah.
so that's in the policy.
Yeah, yeah. My understanding is that they've changed.
The hourly rates.
Yeah.
That is for hearings within the resource consent hearings.
Yeah.
Okay.
My understanding is
We'll check that.
Any other questions? Hurangi?
I'm just looking at the actual policy itself, and it's got placeholders for Te Ao Māori. We'll be filling it in before it goes live. Can I just make a comment that when you're presenting things like this to the council, that it should be in its complete form, so the Te Ao Māori needs to be done over there.
Any other questions? Councillor Falloon?
Just a point of clarification. Does this include payment to the external committees we're appointed? Was that a separate part?
No, that's separate. That was last week's report where we adopted a policy on remunerating appointees to council committees and like the advisory groups.
There are no other questions. Do I have a mover for the recommendation? Councillor Keppel, seconded by Councillor Lennox. All those in favour? A discussion, sorry.
Yeah, I would like to make a few words on this. I think because I know what will happen when this becomes public. We get a lot of backlash from certain members of the public regarding the pay that councillors get. I would just like to say that as a person who's been on council a long time now, that I believe that councillors are not well paid for the work they do. I think there's a tremendous amount of background work and research work, dealing with the public, taking the flak from the public. I mean, there's a whole lot of things come into this more than just coming to a meeting. And certainly it's not a 1 day a week job. It's a 7-day-a-week job for those of us who, and I think it's all of us around this table, would make ourselves available 7 days a week for people to talk to us. So when people go on about councillors' pay, I think they need to take into consideration the fact that this is a 7-day-a-week job. It's not a 1 day a week job. And so I just want to make those points because I know what's going to happen because it's happened with other councils who have already made their decision. And the other thing that's very important to note is that this is not a decision we're making for ourselves. It's made by the Remuneration Authority, and therefore, you know, it's not something that us councillors have decided. But I'd just like to make those points because you know, you just know.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Thank you, Gary. We have a moved by councillor Caffel and seconded by councillor Lennox. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Now we move on to page 46, 7.3, which is the adoption of the Code of Conduct. Karen, thank you.
So officers have brought a slightly amended Code of Conduct to Council for adoption. This is while we wait for the outcome of the Government Systems Improvement Bill, which has a provision in there for the DIA to provide a standard code to Council. The code from last triennium continues until another one is adopted and replaced. And we felt we don't know what's happening with the standard code, so it would be good in the meantime just to include a couple of minor changes in the code. The first, we put some proposals where we're updating the social media provisions. We had those previously as some guidance and felt that it's really important to incorporate those into the code proper. There should be no surprises in those provisions. They are simple common sense and capturing what the current state of play is with the law and best practice, but it just brings it in there, so it brings it to everybody's attention of what your obligations are. We've amended the process for complaints where we've inserted another step within the code. Previously, the Chief Executive made a decision on whether a complaint that was brought to our attention was actually a matter for the code or not, and we feel it's more appropriate for that because it's a simple rules-based assessment. It should be made by council's legal counsel, and then if there is anything that an indication of a breach, then that goes off to an independent investigator for investigation. It's really just a gatekeeping provision. And we have clarified within there, it wasn't clear about members of the public making a complaint. The previous wording suggested that a complaint would automatically go through to be a breach of the Code of Conduct. But as you know, the Code of Conduct is supposed to be a self-regulatory instrument. So we've just made it clear that people can make complaints about misconduct, but that would go to the Mayor and the Chief Executive in consideration of how best to deal with that complaint. Happy to take any questions.
Two amendments within the page 72 and 73. I note it said Northland region, so that there will be changed, and on 73 it said region rather than town, so those things will be tweaked.
So those minor typos will be.
Do we have any questions? Councillor Nelson.
Thank you. When is the new code being developed by local government New Zealand? When will that be ready?
We don't know. The report back on the bill is due within the next week or two, and so there might be some more information around there, but we don't know what that timetable is for the DIA.
Within a week or two.
And the report back, so at the moment the bill is sitting with select committee.
Yep.
So you'll remember we talked about within the bill itself there was a recommendation that there would be a standard code of conduct and a standing orders be developed by the DIA, and there was a lot of comments from submitters saying we're not quite sure why this is the case, and so we are waiting for the report back from the select committee to see whether that proceeds or not, but we don't know how long the DIA, there's no time frame within there for the DIA to provide a standard code. So we thought it best, we start off with a new triennium, best to just include those ones rather than 6 months, a year down the track, and then we can look at what the standard code says and then provide an update to you.
You say the changes are minor, but I think they're quite significant in regard to social media usage, and how things can be interpreted as well. So I beg to differ with you on that particular point. And just for this, it requires 75% of us councillors here today to make the change.
That's right, yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Bloom?
I've got two questions. The self-assessment checklist, when do we do that? How often? And the second question is a little bit like what Councillor Nelson was saying along the lines of the social media use. It's very prescriptive about what you can and can't do. So does that open up grounds for people to make complaints, which can be proved because we've outlined every reason what you should do and shouldn't do?
So yes, people can make complaints. People can make complaints outside of the code as well. So it's better to bring those matters to within the code so that you all understand what those provisions are, and that you can, work to those rather than having any lack of clarity around what your requirements are. But those requirements are, as I said, they're standard practice. They're a reflection of what the law says at the time. It's really just bringing it to your attention about what your rules and obligations are when you are using social media. So they may be prescriptive, but that's really just a reflection of the current state of play.
So I agree with what you've answered there, but the question was, does that open it? If someone thinks that I've spread false information, for example, and then could prove it, and I thought it was true, does that allow them to bring a complaint under the Code of Conduct? The legal counsel says, yes, it is false information, so therefore there's an investigator appointed and I can be censured or whatever under that. So my question is, being very prescriptive about social media use, I think does it bring more risk to council that people can weaponise the Code of Conduct to accuse people of doing something they don't like them doing because they don't have a different opinion?
So when we say people, we mean people around this table because it's a self-regulatory instrument. As I say, bringing it into the code makes it clear on what your obligations are. Yes, if people around the table feel that you have breached the code, then they can make that complaint in just as they can make a complaint about any other part of the code. The rules also reflect the values that are in the beginning of the code. So they provide a little bit more detail around what those values mean when they apply to the use of social media.
So get on to this one. So you talked then about members around this table, but you also said that the public can bring complaints under the Code of Conduct as well.
No, so when a member of the public looks to the Code of Conduct and says, I think there is a breach, then they can make a complaint about that, but it won't be dealt with under the Code of Conduct. The Chief Executive and the Mayor will then consider how best to deal with that complaint. It won't automatically follow that process because the code is a self-regulatory instrument for you around the table. And it was simply that matter that you're raising, councillor, that we can't have the code as something that people who don't agree with what you're saying to use that in an appropriate way.
Councillor Collins?
In regards to the way that the changes are appearing and the track changes, it looks as though there is a lot of change, like a couple of pages of changes that have been made. Is that correct, that this information has been put in here and it's all new, or is the way the track changes are appearing not showing the actual changes that have been made to the Code of Conduct?
No, the track changes show the proposed changes to the current code. So we will have lifted and shifted those provisions around the social media. So there may be crossovers, okay, but it's a lift and shift basically.
And then in regard to all of the page that has been deleted, where all the information has been deleted, that's all been removed and replaced with this information, but there's no crossovers in regards to.
There may be crossovers.
It's just really difficult to see where the changes have been made.
Yeah, this was a compare and contrast, but it has been changed in terms of the wording, but it might not necessarily be the meaning of it.
Then I would also agree that the changes are substantial.
Any other questions? Councillor councillor Nelson, then Matarangi.
So, in the last code, a councillor could make a complaint against an officer if, say, he felt or she felt the code was breached in the meeting. That a councillor can't do that now under the new code. Is that correct?
Don't believe a councillor has been able to use the code because this is the code for members.
Yep.
I think there may have been a note in there, if I remember rightly, if you do have an issue with a member of staff, that's not a matter for the code. It should go to the chief executive as the employer to deal with as an employment matter, not under the code of conduct.
But there was ambiguity before, but there's none now. So a councillor definitely couldn't use that process anymore. Whereas
I don't feel that there's been ambiguity. I think that's always been clear that this isn't a code of conduct for staff. But I think, you know, if you felt that there was ambiguity, well, I'm sorry for that, and hopefully we've cleared it up, whatever that was.
I stand to be correct. So I have used that process. Thank you.
Matarangi.
Just a quick part, what considerations or what thinking was put into considering our treaty articles in the development of the code of conduct?
We use a standard, so LGN did provide a standard template, and we use that as a basis. I'm not sure that there has been anything additional. There was a recent update to that. Do you feel like we should provide some more information within the code around that?
I do. I can.
That might be something if you want to work with us on that for the next iteration, because it's not going to be far away. Yeah, that would be fantastic.
Great. Any other questions? Someone happy to move the recommendation? Councillor Bowyer, do I have a seconder? I'll second. All those in favour, please raise your right hand. Discussion. I always forget that one. This time with three strikes. I apologise. Discussion. Councillor Falloon.
I think this is overly prescriptive around the social media use, and I think it doesn't reflect that it's, I don't know how to say this, but it's we need to provide our own integrity around the job. We've been elected, we're elected members. I think that it's very, very prescriptive. Don't spread conspiracy theories, don't provide false information, don't say anything which is anti-council policy or anything like that. I'm not sure that that I think it reaches too far into our personal life versus our councillor piece. For the record, I've got a Jamie Falloon page with about 10 followers, and I've deleted my Vote Falloon one because I'm wasting my time in the place, but that's my feeling.
Thanks, Jamie. Anybody else discussion? Councillor Nelson?
Yeah, but I believe the chances are mine. I think they're significant. I certainly won't be supporting it.
I just have to mention that the changes to the code of conduct in regard to the social media thing just kind of greater, like reaffirms, I think, our inability to kind of modernise the way that we do things. And I think instead of allowing us forward momentum, it's kind of restricting us and pulling us back. But I do note that in the code of conduct, it does say that unless you're speaking on behalf of the council, you can pretty much say whatever you want in your own space.
Any further discussion? It's been moved and seconded. All those in favour, please raise your right hand. 6. It's been passed. Motion has been passed. Thank you.
We call the vision things.
We have hands up nice and high so that we can record this. It'd be great. So,
And against.
so against words.
Still is used to left hand.
Okay, thank you very much. Good discussion. Good points made as well. Appreciate that. If we move to page 79, please, 7.4, which is additional meeting date. You've got one more to add to this. So I'll just read it out. We've got the recommendation there, but also then we've got an extraordinary meeting of the Hearings Committee at 9 o'clock on the 19th of November to consider an objection to the classification of a dog as menacing. And then on point 2, an additional council meeting on Wednesday, the 3rd of December at 9 o'clock to consider the adoption of the alcohol control bylaw.
Just say the second one again.
Wednesday the 3rd at 9 a.m. Karen, did you?
I think you've summed it up, Your Worship.
Okay. So if everyone's happy with that, I'm happy to move that. Which of those two additional dates, 19th of November and the 3rd of December? And obviously they'll come out to you. Seconded by Councillor Bowyer. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Then we move, oh, you were up there anyway for the next bit. We're up to page 80.8, which is reports for information, and we'll start with 8.1, which is strategy, policy and governance activity report. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Your Worship. Lots going on as always. I just want to draw your attention to a few key pieces of work. The first is Our Future, Our Story, Masterton's vision towards 2050. We're currently out consulting with the community, asking them to help us shape our 25-year development plan. This is a development plan that is long overdue. It will encompass all of our spatial planning requirements, growth planning, infrastructure planning and finance to accompany our infrastructure planning for the next 25 years. We want to be able to reflect people's aspirations for their town and their district, and we say people, we mean the whole of the community. We want to make sure that this reflects iwi aspirations, the development, as I say, rural communities. So we're out and about everywhere. We have an engagement tool with lots of opportunity for people to comment on that. We've already had, I think, over 900 little post-it notes for ideas around what people love about their town and their district, what they would like to change. And then there's an opportunity to have more detailed feedback within that website, and we will be holding this is the first part of visioning, and then we will be moving on later on in the year to developing and having actual concrete proposals for what that plan looks like, and an opportunity again to come out to the community and workshop those with the community. So I encourage everybody to get on there and share your ideas. We will be having in this afternoon's meeting Destination Wairarapa coming and talking about dark skies, but just a plug there for stargazing in the Wairarapa. It has been Lonely Planet, they're one of their top 25 experiences, which is pretty amazing, and you'll have seen national coverage about that. And of course we are working with the other two councils to join the Dark Skies Reserve. On the national policy front, the government has released its national adaptation framework. There's much more detail to come, but framework around 4 pillars of what we need to do as a country. It's very clear that the roles for adaptation planning will fall to local government to work with our communities on how we best adapt and provide for the effects of climate change. And there's more information around how we're actually going to pay for that. I mean, not in this term of government, but in the next one. And just note that we are currently underway on our solid waste bylaw review. Happy to take any questions.
Yeah, I've got a question. It relates to page 83. I noticed there's some upcoming policies, and some of the information there includes equitable funding of rural roads and also senior housing. Do you have any more information on any of that to date, even though there's, what sort of work's been done in those areas?
Yes, so with the equitable funding for rural roads, we're currently working through a discussion document and modelling for how we would go about providing equitable funding for rural roads, so focusing mainly on forestry and the impacts that forestry has on our roading network. We will be providing some information on that at a forthcoming workshop for council, but we would like to work with the other two councils on that to the extent that that's possible, given that we all have different rating systems. But it would be good to be consistent across the wider APRA if that's possible. And again, we need to test this, but we might be looking to come out to consult with the community on that around March, April, because it's something that we need to have sorted for that to then be built into our budgets for the long-term plan the following year. Senior housing, we're working on a background paper at the moment on that, and that will come to council.
Thank you. Councillor Goodwin, then Councillor Lennox.
A few questions. So when will that senior housing information you're working on come to us?
It's one of our lower priorities at the moment, so it will not be this year. I'm hoping that it will be towards in the first quarter of next year.
And what sort of things can you give us any idea of what you're looking at?
Also senior housing provisioning and within the wider APRA, you know, there's a good network of providers for social housing and public housing, so it's just fitting in with that. It's to work alongside our work on Panama and the High Court decision that enabled us to sell or lease the land around Panama, not the Panama buildings themselves, but the land around Panama, so that we make sure that we do that in a consistent way.
In our future, our story, what timetable have you got in your mind for that? Let's say, what a 25-year vision. So we've got a year or three to pull it together.
No, I mean, it will take on our current work plan, it will be, we're looking to approve that for Christmas time next year. So then the direction that's given within that plan can then be incorporated in long-term plans for the next 10 years budgets. There's a lot of work going on nationally and regionally at the moment. You'll know that the RMA reforms, both the previous government's reforms and this government's reforms, include a requirement for a regional spatial plan. The Wellington Regional Leadership Committee are already working on what that might look like. So we need to be ahead of the game and be able to feed into all of that information when that comes out. And I think the government's looking at a very short transition time, so within 2 years. So if that bill is passed, they're anticipating on RMA changes to be next June. Then that only gives us 2 years to do that. And like I say, we're already anticipating it's going to be taking another year from now. So we need to make sure that we've got everything, all our ducks in a row, our infrastructure lined up to be able to feed into that piece of legislation, because it will be a regulatory instrument. And at the moment, as I said previously, our development has been fairly ad hoc. There are areas where there are tensions around growth areas. It takes a long time. The experience from other councils is, you know, it takes a couple of years to develop plans because we need to be able to address those various tensions.
And lastly, maybe a question for David Powers, the population increase coming back. Can we sometime get some feedback on the effect on rates, like what your allowance for growth is, what this means? Doesn't have to be today, but maybe in the next week or two. Would that be?
The growth allowances in the annual plan.
So what you got, 1.1, is it?
I think it's 1.5 in the current year's annual plan, which is the growth in the rating base. It's the additional rates that we collect from new value added to the rating base since the previous rates strike. So we're getting 1.5% more rates just from growth of numbers of properties and property values. It's not directly related to population growth, but they're two separate things. But we can only use valuation growth and numbers of property growth in order to influence the amount of rates that we collect.
Thank you.
Councillor Lennox and then Councillor Bloom.
Thank you, Karen. Just in regards to our future, our story, are we able or are we capturing how many people we are actually engaging with? And then in regards to that, the 900 post-its, is that online or is that overall? It'd be quite nice to get some data or just have a little snapshot of data, maybe every quarter, on how this is tracking and where the engagements
Absolutely.
sitting.
You can see the post-it notes online that have gone through that portal, but
It's
we
not
are out and about and collecting physical post-it notes from people. And if people just want to come in and drop in some post-it notes to the main desk, then they're more than welcome to do that too. But yes, we can report on it. We will be reporting on that data as we go. Plan to do that at our workshop next week.
And then sort of a percentage, how much of your team's work, I guess, weekly work is going into this plan as such?
That's a good question. It's been over a number of different people. And we planned this into our work programme. Don't forget that we signalled this within our long-term plan for this year. We've actually been we're about a 6-month delay on starting that work, and so we're having to catch up now because of those timeframes are quite tight. We are putting more resource into it, so I'll come back to you on what that resourcing is.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Councillor Bloom.
Forestry rating policy, would you like any input from forest owners, and would you like some input from landowners who have forestry before it comes to council as a workshop and just sort of too far down the track?
Yep, we're definitely doing that. I spoke with, is it the Lower North Island Wood Council, that's the one. So I spoke with them when we discussed this around the long-term plan. So it was a year or two now, but now we are re-engaging. We will be re-engaging with them and other members to make sure that, to test our thinking and to address the concerns that they have before we go out for consultations.
Around this, because I have a couple and I don't agree with that.
Absolutely.
So what's the steps of doing all that?
Yep. So we'll work up the discussion documents. We've got a discussion document that's been drafted and a draft model. So we'll work that up until officers are comfortable with taking that out for discussion, and then we'll connect with stakeholders that we need to, and then we'll have a workshop with council around what those matters are, so that we know that we're giving you the best information. And as I say, I think my preference would be to consult on that as part of the annual plan. But if we don't meet that time frame, we'll consult on that before. I think October will probably be our cut-off for that. But yes, we will have a number of workshops for council to take you through what that rate would look like.
Question, but it's probably there's quite a lack of understanding about the different ownership models of forestry and how rating impacts effects on those. So I think it would be valuable to have some discussion. So I've got 500 hectares of forestry in a range of different ownership structures. So if you would like to get some background on that just before we head too far down the track that everyone's saying forestry should pay more. So I would offer my support for that. Otherwise, we can lose the narrative of this, and once you get this out the door, it ain't coming back.
That would be really helpful. Thank you, Councillor.
Any other questions? Councillor Goodwin.
Just on page 82, that pillar 1 risk and response information. I'd like to know how we could talk about adding an earthquake risk to flood risk, both quite well documented. How can that conversation happen, or what are they nationally looking at that?
So my understanding is they are focusing on flood. That's been the source of a lot of the recent issues. I feel that our Wellington region information that we provide is up to date and complete. I'm not quite sure. I haven't looked into the background to the information as why the government feels that this is something that's really necessary. There must be patchy in other areas of the country, or maybe it doesn't quite do what they want it to do. But this is what central government's for itself. I was at a conference and the climate change minister spoke about having to pay, we all have to pay the same people the same money for the licensing to be able to use that data. So my understanding is that it's looking at how we can do that nationally and only pay once. So answering your question around earthquake hazards, I don't know how far that is up on their list.
Okay, well, maybe we can talk about that, and that's a query we can put to them.
Yes, and I think when that information comes out, I expect it will be in the form of a discussion document, so we could make a submission on that.
Councillor Floon?
Okay, question around, 15 and 16, the methane target reduction. Does the district council have scope around that, and why was that put in this report for the relevance of district council?
But for information effectively, and any of the work that we do that will respond to our own corporate emissions, our work that we do with the community. We have funding, of course, for our climate grants, and we look at particular measures there around how providing funding for projects that look to reduce emissions and the general work that we're having to do around climate adaptation. You know, we have a responsibility around adaptation and mitigation. So this is for information for the council and for the community, and then we can take that forward in the work that we do.
Biogenic methane, which is from ruminant animals. Council obviously has a responsibility around methane from solid waste processes and targets there, which have been separated out. So I think it would it'd be useful to make clear here that the scope the district council has around biogenic methane is whether it provides any grants around climate change adaptation for projects around reducing biogenic methane, rather than putting it in here like that.
Well, it's obviously the climate affects everything we do, so it will touch on everything that we do. So if there are measures that you know, have a reduction, then obviously that's going to be better for the environment, better for council and our provision of our services. So where we can give effect to that, we will do.
Are there any other questions? Thank you, Karen. I'm happy to move the report. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Bowyer, discussion. Right.
I just want to say that our Future 2050, getting a lot of positive feedback from the community about, and even had members of other councils saying ideas.
Thank you.
Yeah, so right. I just think this is a little bit misleading around methane reduction. It sort of puts it in as a report that council's endorsing the decision which has been made by government, and it needs to provide clarity, because we've had, from the rural sector, we've had a lot of issue with Greater Wellington putting in climate change targets in their regional plan, which obviously they've paused at the moment, and the government's saying that the councils can't put climate change targets in their regional plan. Greater Wellington were the first off. So biogenic methane is from ruminant animals. I don't think the district council has any scope around whether those targets are right or wrong in what they think. Methane reduction from solid waste, as I said, we do have scope around that because we have targets that we have to achieve from the landfills that we have. So I'd like to see in future some commentary around that there's a consideration of this. This is that the government have changed the climate targets, and that Masterton District Council either supports it or doesn't support it, or whatever that is. But it just says in here that it's just not very clear about why that's in that report.
That's noted. Councillor Holmes?
Yes, I'd back Councillor Floon on that. I noticed it myself, and at least he brought it up, but I think we need to be very careful, you know, how we do go about these things and how we word things. It's probably
Amy?
Me again, I'd like to add to that. So currently, the agriculture sector is achieving a 1.5% reduction in biogenic methane. Will meet the target which the government set by the current actions which are happening. This is while also increasing productivity and profitability in the rural sector as well. So 47% was a real stretch. 24% is achievable on the current rates that we're dropping, and there's large scale investment from MPI and the commercial agriculture sector in biogenic methane reduction. So don't take it wrong that I'm not agreeing with the target. I'm just saying how we use it.
Thank you. Any further discussion? We have a mover and a seconder for the report. All those in favour, please say aye. Motion is carried. Thank you. Now we move on to page 91, 8.2, Infrastructure and Assets Activity Report. Thank you, Maz.
Your Worship. Good morning, councillors. The report for Infrastructure and Assets Group I will take as read. It's been a full 6 weeks, as it always is, but we've had the weather event which diverted our people and our contractors somewhat. There's been quite a bit of work involved in preparing for the induction sessions and those workshops. And then in addition to that, we are starting to look at the annual plan projects that will be presented to you in the next month or so. I am happy to take any questions.
Yeah, I've just got a few. Can you explain what zone meters are, please? It's on page 94 underwater. It talks about on track to commence physical works for installing the zone meters.
Yes, so this was something that we brought to you all some months ago. This is where you have a full district and you don't have a method to determine how much supply and demand is going into particular areas. You also may not have good controls around isolations. And it's a common practice to kind of break up a whole area into pockets. You can get better data analysis, you can have a lot more control. So as part of the water meter project, we rolled out a district meter zone project where we're putting in specific larger meters and large valves. We've broken the area up, the district up to about six zones.
Okay, and I've just got a few questions. You talk about on page 95 about EnviroSchools program now being managed by Greater Wellington. We fund into that, and I just wondered, does that change anything with regards to the money we're spending on it or not?
For now, the funding arrangement doesn't change. What may happen next financial year may change. The service is still provided. They are now just being hosted, so effectively, administered, if you like, by GW.
Okay, I've got 3 more questions. Memorial Park is on page 97. Now it's been, I don't know, maybe 4 years since we spoke about that last. And what my question is, I'd like to know whether a paper will be coming back to us on that once the assessments are finished and the work's been specified and defined.
I hadn't intended on bringing a paper back.
Or maybe could I get a refresher or something?
Yeah, sure. So I think that project had been rolled over for a number of years.
Yeah.
We initiated a condition assessment on the grandstand and tried to understand what resilience risks we had there. We've had the report back. There's, I think it's 500,000 that is allocated this current financial year, and there's funds further out. So we are just pulling the report apart to kind of assess what we can get done for that amount of money. And if we defer, what that next number might look like. Yeah. So we're working with the rugby club in that regard. They have some particular
requirements
and requirements, but we're focusing on, the asset first before.
Yeah, I'd just be like a refresher. When we decide what work's been done.
If you like, we'll reflect once we've outlined the scope.
reflected in
what we think we can get for the money. I'll provide an update in the activity.
And next is, noticed we've done some work on Poriama and Kauro Hall, and we've spoken about the halls and what we do with them, etc. Have we got an update on that?
I think we're just following the process. We're at the point now of getting confirmation from iwi of their interest, and then we've got to follow that process through. That whole piece of work, we have set ourselves a goal of either coming back to you and you deciding what you want us to do with all of those remaining assets that we've signalled as surplus, or ideally have progressed to sale or a decision to keep by the end of June. So it is still ongoing.
Yep. Okay. And my final question, and then we'll go to
Oh,
is it to do with that?
So conflict of interest, benefit hall, within where I live. Contacted by the RSA about the war memorial, which is in front of it, in February or March last year, and was assured that there'll be consultation with the community around council's thoughts. Still haven't heard anything from anyone around that, so I respectfully suggest that you consult with the communities as well before you make decisions about buy, sell, or change, whatever you do.
Our policy does certainly require us to do that, councillor, but it's just the scale of consultation. And the first protocol is interest with iwi, so we do that, and then we work out what level of engagement or consultation we need to undertake. And we have actually had a couple of parties reach into us.
Yeah, but you haven't consulted with the community at all about the plan that we found out that you're planning to sell it through an external person. No one came to our community and said, hey, this is surplus to our requirements, what do you guys want to do with it as well?
I think we signalled in the LTP that council would be looking at surplus assets in regards to any facilities or buildings.
And also we haven't determined what we're going to sell and what we're not going to sell yet.
No, that's right. You've given us direction for a first set.
Yeah, and my final question is on page 98 with regards to the upcoming lease policy work.
Yes.
And you're saying that workshop plan, do you know when that's planned? Because I know it's a big piece of work and it's been going on for some time, but it's a real opportunity for us to get a level playing field and some structure around our leases.
I think we've got that tabled for February. It is definitely early. It's in the first quarter of next year.
Okay, that's me. Thank you. Councillor Goodwin, then Councillor Lennox.
Three queries. On page 94, the Opeki water race complete now, fully automated. Can you just explain what that is?
Up until the last couple of months, the operation of that scheme was very manual. So we had to have people that would go out on site to kind of lift up a bit of a weir to let water through or close it off. And we were having lots of compliance issues, which were meaning we were having to get people on site to confirm whether or not we were complying with regional council consent. So we have automated it. We've put a valve in there, which automatically operates under certain conditions and certain settings. And that helps us, it improves our data understanding in terms of flow, what's happening and when, but it also helps us understand when we are compliant. So less having to go on site.
So just remind me where we are with that. You're working to shut it down, but working with the user group to possibly reinstate it or retain it. Is that?
Yes. So at the moment the resource consent is with Masterton District Council, and we are obligated to continue to comply with that, which is part of the automation is that. Direction was provided by elected members some months ago to financially support the OPACI Water Race Committee up to the tune of $100,000 with their consent application. And some conditions were provided to me around spending that money. And one of them was that a memorandum of understanding be signed, and there were some commitments required by that committee. The MOU still has not been signed by the committee, so I'm just trying to work through those issues with them, but it is becoming pressing because if we don't get that signed and they do not progress as quickly as they may like with that consent, it's quite likely I will be standing up here talking to you in the future again about where we are at with that.
Okay. And the other one is the CBD upgrade. Start date established January. That's making some people nervous at being peak sort of visitor time in the town, in the CBD. So that is coming, some details coming back to us. Is the start date also going to come back to us?
The start date for projects is, typically something that we deal with in operations. There's no good start date for that job, to be honest.
No, but sometimes I suppose they're less bad than others.
What we intend to bring back is the results of the tender, an indication to you all on what we could potentially do in terms of street beautification for a nominal sum of around $100,000, and a bit of information around how we deal with the situation with the trees. And we've had a technical engineering inquiry around the right-of-way. So we will bring that to you.
Okay. Yep. And the final one, the simple one, what's on the next page, what's craft at the waste stream?
Cardboard.
Cardboard. No. But as in, this sort of stuff.
No, brown colour,
Okay.
but not coloured.
Councillor Lennox.
Thank you. Thank you, Maz. I always appreciate your report. Generates a lot of discussion, as you can see. Just around the Henley Lake consent and the Queen Elizabeth Park consent, obviously they're all in progress. Have we got a worst case scenario plan for that we have in the wings, just in case things don't go to plan for us in regards to obtaining the consent? Okay.
Other than the lake going dry? No.
Okay.
So the point at the moment, it's the consent and the background kind of commissions some work on how we could work smartly and maybe reuse or recycle to reduce the amount that we're abstracting. We are not thinking about an alternative at this stage.
Cool. My second question, I just sort of see that as a risk, I guess. Like the two jewels of the district, people love them, and yeah, just looking ahead for all scenarios. The town hall demolition and the animal shelter. So the animal shelter is sitting at amber. So I know this has now gone into another phase of we've passed the due date that we expected. And when you've got a target move-in date is before Christmas, is that a kind of a given? Because I just feel like with any project that just keeps continually on and on and on and on, it's costing us more money.
I don't think this one has gone on and on and on.
No, I feel like no.
Well, if it has, it may have been 4 to 6 weeks.
Is it gonna be open?
So we will be moving in December, but we probably will not be operational until January. So yeah, there's a bit of a process to get from the current into the new. So the plan, as I understand it right now, is that we begin that move in December, but realistically operational on site in January.
That's cool. I might be confused with the soft opening we had, maybe that's got me thinking it was. Anyway, woof to that. Now the Queen Elizabeth Park pedestrian bridge, just the wording here gives, makes me a bit nervous. The existing JC bridge will remain in situ, great. Permanently, question mark, I don't know, is that going to remain in place permanently? And then talking about the engineering assessment to ensure it remains safe and compliant. So there's still a possibility.
I think what we're saying there is that bridge will not be commissioned without direction from elected members. There will be an assessment that will be required, and we may have to come back to you and say, look, if you want us to keep that, there might be some structural stuff required to make sure it's safe.
Okay, cool. And then my final question of your wonderful report is just around the, I know it's not many, 21 water requests. That's not a huge increase, but I'm just interested to know, were they all from a particular area, or were they all a similar problem, or were they just random one-offs?
Well, what we have noticed is that since the team have issued letters about private leaks, and also, hey, this is what you're using in comparison to kind of the norm, the number of inquiries has certainly gone up.
Okay, good. That's great. Yeah, cool. Awesome. Thanks, Miss.
Councillor Bowyer, then Councillor Floon.
Thanks, everyone. Just a quick one around the wood hanger development. I've had a bit of a request. There was an information where we're at thing was sent out to some of the expression of interest people. Can that be resent, because it appears that maybe some people didn't get it?
Absolutely, and there is a pack in draft that will be released within the next week or two.
Thank you.
Councillor Floon.
Yeah, just want to ask a few more questions about the consents. So the Henry Lake and the QE2 consents have been lodged. So therefore, we operate under the current conditions of the existing consent until Greater Wellington make a decision.
That's right.
Yeah. So the chances of running dry this year are more about actually physically getting the water in there rather than not being allowed to take it.
Yes, I think that actually running dry is a long.
Yeah, if they don't grant us a consent,
Yes.
so that's good. And the Opaki water race, so obviously the decision was made, but if Masterton District Council hands the consent over to the Opaki water race incorporated society, whatever they call themselves, does that run the risk of that consent not being granted by Greater Wellington because it's a new consent holder?
Oh yeah, we are in talks with GW and that committee to try to line things up, but we can't kind of preempt what GW are going to approve. We are looking at a potential transfer. That may be problematic because there are rights that council has under bylaws, which we may not be able to transfer to an alternative party. So I think GW is saying from their perspective, if it is a transfer and then an application of the existing by another party, that might be easier. But don't really have answers to some of this at the moment.
So, but at this stage, Masterton District Council applying for the consent before that expires, so therefore there's existing use rights in that consent as well.
So we are not applying for the consent. The existing consent, a renewal was applied a few years ago, but it was an application to close. So the existing consent is to operate up to the 30th of June 2026. One of the conditions was that we submit a closure management plan, and we've done that. And then there's a number of things that MDC needs to do by the 30th of June next year. So we're kind of trying to run this in parallel so that we don't completely close the scheme down while the committee are trying to, give it life. So we're trying to work together on it.
Would you like some help in you signed?
Very much so. Perhaps I could have an offline discussion with you, Councillor.
Are there any more questions? Councillor Nelson.
Thank you. Thank you, report mayors. Just in regards to the Kaituna water storage, so the design work and the engineering reports, they could be done to essentially hit the ground running with the new CCO. Or are we looking to do, is a paper going to be presented to us at council to do that work before the CCO starts?
I'm just continuing on in the three water space as if as if that's not going to happen as we get closer to that time, I imagine the CEs and the project team will talk about handover and actual transition. But the plan is that around March of next year, we come to you, present the technical reports, if you like, the options, which will outline what we need for Masterton,
Yeah.
where we might put a raw and some treated reservoirs, and I guess that we can pick the discussion up then around timing.
Yep.
But for now, I'm just kind of working to the numbers and the dates in the LTP.
So that information will be very useful for a new CCO that's looking at central projects for our region.
Yes, absolutely, and you'd expect that would all be handed over.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Thank you very much, Ms. I'd like to move the report from infrastructure. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Lennox. All those in favour, please say aye. We have discussion.
Yeah, so we plan to, so these are every 6 weeks. Every council meeting there's these reports. We plan to move that to quarterly.
No,
Oh, okay, I thought you sent an email saying we're going to drop these reports to quarterly because of the workload of doing them every 6 weeks. And I think I'd just like to say that I think the reports are very detailed and provide a good perspective, and I would agree that they should be quarterly rather than every 6 weeks. So I don't think anything significant is going to change in the information provided here, and if it does, it'll be brought to the council meeting as an item anyway.
Well, that'd certainly relieve pressure.
Yeah.
So, we can discuss that afterwards and get an agreement on it.
okay, thank you. We'll move on to page 99, 8.3, which is the community activity report.
Sorry.
Aye, all in favour, aye.
Dear, I need a bit more practice.
You need to join a golf club.
You've got 3 years.
Sorry.
Yeah. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion has been carried. Thank you. We'll move to page 99, 8.3, community activity report. Thank you. Welcome, Karen.
Morena, Your Worship and councillors. So I'll take the paper as read and just note a couple of quick things opening up. So the work around the library is progressing well, and the team have been in the process of moving into the temporary space. That's finishing off this week, and the library will be opening on Monday in that temporary space for the duration of the build. So I'm looking forward to having members of the public, indeed elected members and iwi reps in there soon. And also just acknowledging this successful Halloween event, which we had what's it now, a week and a half or so ago. It's become one of our key events of the year, which the community really love. And in particular this year, the work with the Wairarapa Theatre Company, who put on the Haunted House, which was a huge success and a real sort of step change in terms of that. And it's wonderful to have a group within the community working with us to do that. They came to us and wanted to take that over, and that's exactly the sort of thing we're working on in that space, is to get as much as we can into that community-led community partnership as we put on things, not just council doing it on their own. And just also noting around dog registrations. So we're really pleased with the way that's tracked this year. We're at the highest level since 21-22. And that's great, and that that's a result of the work that the team have been doing in terms of engagement in the community, and also a wee bit of enforcement activity where we need to encourage people to do the responsible thing and register their animals. And I'll take questions.
Councillor Goodwin.
Just on page 105, the Henley Lake wetlands. Protecting the birds, is that the geese? I mean, I thought we were trying to get.
No, it's not about the geese. It's about the nesting season in particular there. So there's a number of birds there, including native birds. And so every year we have a period where off leash is not allowed around Henley to protect the bird life here.
Is there, I mean, there used to be, I don't know, did you get in any trouble? Did people go down and blow the eggs or something of the geese? to Try and control there.
So there is, so that's in Maz's area, but there is a process that we do on an annual basis, which is exactly around that, around controlling the Canadian geese population.
Any other questions of Karen? Councillor Flume?
Just explain how the 8-day noise direction works.
Yep. So that's a change in the legislation. So what it enables us to do, if the team need to, is actually have the direction in place for a longer period of time, the 8 days. So there are occasions, and this has been nationally, which is why it's been the changes have been made, that we have repeated issues in a community. So it might be a particular house, etc. So rather than it being just a point in time in a short direction, it enables a longer period to try and then deal with whatever the underlying issue is. And that's the intent is obviously to get things back to normal and not have that conflict.
Councillor Collins?
Just wondering, I've put a couple of antenna requests through and I'm not sure how are the antenna requests closed? Because they're currently still open.
Okay, so what would normally happen is that the antenna request becomes a service request and then is dealt through as part of our normal process. What the request was. Some will come back to the person to notify closure. If it's something like there's an illegally parked car, which we get that sort of thing, we don't typically come back to the person because the thing gets dealt with and then it's done. If you've got particular ones that you've got a question about, I'm happy offline to find out what it is and understand what's going on there for you.
So my understanding is that it was a end-to-end process. And so just in regards to them not being closed, it does leave people kind of hanging in regards to, so, but you're happy to take it.
Sure.
Any other questions? Thank you. I'll have a mover and a seconder. Yeah. Moved by Councillor Falloon, seconded by Councillor Goodwin. Discussion. Member in there, isn't he?
No, I had one.
Oh, great, thank you.
Absolutely. So I'm just looking at the different community groups that we have and wondered if there was or where a Māori community group might sit within that framework, whether it's either as a committee or as a community association group. I know it's a question, but
Probably be a question to have with Karen
So
further to this.
yeah. So we pick it up line. I mean, the general thing with those community groups, they are community groups that have stood themselves up within the community. So there's always a place for more community groups. And we have parts, geographic around the town where we could have more, but it doesn't have to just be based around geography. So
I'm happy to have that further conversation with you as well. Councillor Lennox?
Yes, thank you. I just wondered if this was a good opportunity just to inform the public of the fact that I'll still be co-chairing the refugee
Yeah, I saw that.
settlement group. So I'll continue that for the next 3 years alongside sitting around the Youth Council and also the representative for Te Awhina Community Hub. And was there any other councillor members, Waireka, you're going to be part of Youth Council with me? Were there any other little roles like that? I just thought it's nice to have them in the public domain, even though they're not official ones. I don't know, were there any others that people have been part of? No?
Oh, I'm sure there are. Yeah. Councillor Holmes?
I've just picked up. Ibo should be the Wakataki Hotel, not the House of Point Hotel.
Oh,
So just
you've been named.
thought that was very important for people at Wakataki.
Mahurangi.
Kia ora. Awesome that we've had two kaimahi go off to Akurarel. Just wondering what else is put in place for them to continue their learning.
Yeah, we're in discussion now, so if we can, we're going to stick to that at the moment. We can certainly come back and give you that info at length. So,
Any other discussion on the report?
Can I just add also that we do have the Māori Women's Welfare League that exists in the Masterton area, and I'm currently the president to serve.
Cool. Excellent. Thank you. No further discussion? We have a mover and a seconder. Oh,
I'll move.
moved by Councillor Holmes, seconded by Councillor Lennox. We have now have 4 movers and seconders. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Motion is carried. Thank you. So my mayor's report, which Harriet's just going to drop off a little piece of paper, well, a big piece of paper, on the meetings I've had since being in office. Yeah, well, I actually didn't realise I had to do a mayor's report until I got the agenda. So next time it will be as written in the agenda. But in the meantime, no, I've just dropped, this shows you the meetings I've had since I started. So it's been a busy time, as you can sure appreciate. I must say, one of the things that do make the job easier is having been on council before, because you know the people that you're dealing with, you know the staff, you know actually where all the projects are at and kind of where everything's at. But it still is an absolute shock to actually everything else that you're suddenly having to do, which is very, very exciting, and it's been a whirlwind and a really enjoyable time. So these are the meetings I've had in the past few weeks. So I'm just going to touch on a few of them just to give you a bit more detail. So the Changchun visit, Changchun is our sister city, and we used to have, my understanding is, a very, very strong relationship with them, which kind of faltered when COVID happened. And the meeting we've had with the delegates and Stella caught up with them also, they're wanting to reinstate the school exchange with Wairarapa schools, which is when a teacher goes over to Changchun and then a teacher from Changchun comes over to here. And they're really excited about that, and a delegation came over to discuss that, and they're currently in talks with Chanel, Makolda and Waiko. So that looks like it'll happen next year. So that's the beginning again of our relationship with them, which is very good, and they're so excited about it. It was great. So we're keeping an eye on that, and we assist minimally, but our main thing is we're the kind of conduit and the contact for the two. So that's great news. And then they want to look at, after the teacher exchange, a school exchange as well. Hood user group, obvious. And further to the hearings that we had last year, Maz and I are working on the opportunity for a small advisory group with Hood, so that we're walking along with them on the journey that we take with regards to realising the potential at our aerodrome. So we're excited about that. Bob Francis is coming in to talk to us in the first week of December with regards to a number of projects, the Aviation Centre update, Wings. I met with the new chair of Wings. So they've got almost a new board, and they're planning to kick that off for 27. And also a medical update on the medical centre, and also he'll report back to Pakaha and the progress being made there. The next one was a gentleman interested in a live gig venue here, and I put in touch with the Masterton Theatre Company because they're looking at possibly a new building which could incorporate other acts and other interested parties. Mayor's School was very interesting, and I would say there are probably, of all the mayors, about four mayors that had never had local government experience. They looked completely dazed. And there were more new mayors than returning mayors. So it was an interesting mix. And as you can appreciate, there were lots of opinions in the room. But one phrase I really enjoyed taking away from that: strategies are worth nothing if you don't deliver. Love that line. Had an evening with the Honourable Louise Upston, which was celebrating the Lonely Skies view, I suppose, down in Martinborough. And most of you went to the business breakfast about CBD. We met with Minister Chris Bishop, and our discussion there was mainly about state of rural roads and how can we fund them. Also, we talked about the rail service and how important it would be to the survival and the progress of Wairarapa, and also had great discussions, not great, big discussions about climate change, flood areas and coastal damage. See what comes of that anyway. Spoke at the Age Concern AGM. Rest is pretty self-explanatory. Met with both iwi, fantastic meetings, really positive, working in partnership, pick up the phone, kind of relationship, which is terrific. We've also scheduled in regular meetings, but we're also on call otherwise, but also if those meetings are booked and we're not having meetings for the sake of it, you know, but it was very positive and great discussion, and also to hear from each what their ideas are for the communities that we live in. Terrific, actually. Met with Nick Tom, who's been here, I think, for about 10 months as the acting area commander, and he's just been appointed in the role. And we met to talk about a number of things. This is going to sound weird, but crime is really good at the moment. Actually, Wairarapa's in a pretty good space. Nothing, you know, flaring or causing them to stay awake at night. Biggest problem is the wastewater testing with meth. So they're going to up their concentration on that. But also we spoke at length about the Riversdale problems at Labour Weekend. And the great thing is the community police have been out there and had a meeting with the residents and the local people, and they've come up with some ideas and processes that will assist for those long weekends, and they're actually in contact with the homeowners as well, and we'll do that prior to each sort of long weekend again. So it's just a bit more of a hands-on approach, and he's going to keep us in touch with a regular template on what's happening in Masterton, but also make us aware of any local community group or community meetings they have so that we can attend. So that was positive. I was privileged and honoured to be at the Transit Centenary Gala where they celebrated 100 years. Amazing event, but also just amazing to recognise their contribution locally, but also nationally as well as internationally, and what a icon they are, and just an amazing family business. And Stella was the MC, and she was funny and engaging and did a great job. Well done. And then you see I met with Cass Point ratepayers. Armistice Day did a presentation yesterday, and now Craig and I had our first mayors and deputy mayors meeting with Fran and Steve and co from South Wairarapa and Carterton. We spoke at length about economic development, forestry rates, shared services, amalgamation and water resilience. And it was pretty feisty. So that's me. So that's just an overview. Does anyone have any questions?
Bex, I just wondered regarding the police. They used to come and speak to us at council, and that was great. You know, just 10 minutes. It was always well worthwhile, and I'd like to see that happen again if possible.
Absolutely, that's a great idea. It's a great idea.
Get to know who we are.
Marika.
Just noting that you've got Pacifica Trust meeting there as well.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm representing. I was trying not to go through all of them.
Yeah.
I'm the deputy chair on that, but also the council rep for all three councils. And at the moment, our focus is on securing funding because at the moment they have enough funding from the health to last them for 12 months. But so we're working on the future of their funding and what that will look like, because even though it was created through COVID and the need, it also highlighted that that was a vulnerable community that hadn't really been catered for prior to that. So the needs in health, education, REC, renting, housing and immigration still exist. So our big focus is trying to secure future funding.
And I am aware that the visa requirements have changed. And so just
put that out there that something about Pacific Fund and might need some extra support for doing that. So.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Goodwin?
You're forming a hood advisory group. Is that, I thought when we went through the last meetings with them, they had their own advisory group, which
No, what
is meant to come to us.
No,
a bit more.
what they have a safety group, which is just focused on safety issues, working with CAA, that works closely with our airport manager and also Maz. This is more a group of really interested and active aviators out there who want to realise the potential of Hood with business opportunities, ideas that could work. So it's quite a different focus. It's more, I mean, their goal is to reduce the impact on ratepayers and to come up with ideas that will help Hood grow while we are planning what we do.
Sort of formal committee.
Yeah. Any other questions? Anyway, it's
Another question, but just another group that you might like to meet with is the Te Karu Te Ika Iwi Māori Partnership Board. So they're in the health space, but also some of the stuff that they're looking at is the statistics of health who are now coupling.
Yeah.
So that might be somebody to get in touch with. Andrea Rutin is the.
yeah,
Yes.
thank you. Jamie.
So meeting with the other mayors, did you talk about the share of Masterton's money for Destination Wairarapa?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you just outline a little bit more about
You
where? Can you outline a little bit more about where that might be heading or
Sure.
what was?
It's fair to say that we discussed economic development, tourism, those sorts of areas, and whether you can monitor the effectiveness. It's a difficult one. You know, there's always a joke about advertising. We know it works, but we're not sure which half. And we talked about whether it could be done better. In that mix too is also business wairarapa. And last year, those two came to us and said, we wonder whether there's a better model, which is rather than having Destination Wairarapa here and Business Wairarapa here, whether perhaps they could combine. And we left that with them, asking them to come back to us, which now we're having the same conversation. But Fran is going to pursue that from the South Wairarapa end to say, if you think that would work, give us a proposition that we can consider, which we've basically said, well, we're open to looking at anything that comes through, but also that we have to look after Masterton ratepayers and what is the best way to spend our money or not. So that's kind of the discussion. So where it was left is they're coming back to us with how that could look. Our current contract with Destination Wairarapa is until September of this year. Next year, sorry, or we're past September. Yeah, so, you know, one of the things we're tasked with is the best way to do things, and also not to just do things wareka you like this just because that's the way we've always done them. So we are going to have a look at that.
Thanks.
Yeah. Craig, did you want to add anything?
It was a very robust discussion where we outlined our position, and will be a discussion that is ongoing.
Yeah. Yes, actually, what a question would be, will you be meeting the other mayors regularly? Like,
Yeah, we do. Yeah. 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 Then we have an agenda.
Oh gosh.
Very official.
Excellent.
You want to Okay, could someone move the report? Thank you, Councillor Good. Oh, did you have a question?
Oh, I just wondered if it was raised the issue of the agendas for the combined council with the mayors. It's some people have found it's not what it could be always.
We have brought that up.
Yeah, that has been raised. So each of the councils, when they host the actual combined council, they create the agenda. So it's up to that council. We have made it pretty clear that it needs to be an opportunity for elected members to engage with each other rather than just be spoken to or talked at. So the next one is at Masterton. And after that, I think it comes through to Masterton in February. So the agenda for Masterton has already been created, I believe. It's probably the problem. So when it comes to Masterton, it will look totally different.
Robin?
Was amalgamation discussed?
Yes.
What's the feeling?
The feeling was that everyone's for it. And let's get a paper on the table which says we all agree, and at least we know that we all agree. And so the conversations we have now can be that in mind for the future. Nobody wanted to spend any time or money on it though. It'd be a fair summary, Craig? Yeah.
It would be fair to say that the local MP did say that there was a grievance with council to amalgamate. Crown would probably help in some way, shape or form.
So we'll come back to council with something like that.
There is quite a process around that though, so it's not necessarily elected members just agreeing, it's the community that needs to agree. So there's quite a lot involved in that. I would be interested to see what happens when local water done well is implemented, because I think that will trigger an immediate response.
Okay, Jamie.
Yeah, I was quite surprised in previous presentation you put up, Karen, around the planning hierarchy, that Greater Wellington was still sort of embedded in the natural resource plan position, because I always assumed that the RMA would allow amalgamation, but it seemed that the way their process is there will be a resource planning organisation of some type. There won't be an amalgamated unitary authority type position. So if there's any more clarification on that, would be
Well,
good to understand.
part of the discussion yesterday was that TAs will need to roll first, and then whatever happens otherwise will be further down the track. So the TAs would join together.
Yeah, I think without going and testing that out, I think that the public will be like, well, the rural public will be very, no, that's not a very good idea. So yeah, the amalgamation thing really highlights that fact that we actually have to do some real thinking about what the structure will be, so that we don't get in this argument of unitary versus super city that we were in the last one, which then just meant that people just, we didn't get that. We didn't get a unitary and we didn't get a super city either. We got neither. So sort of pointless. A lot of energy was wasted on amalgamation and not got anywhere. So we could learn from those mistakes. Thanks.
Okay, so Brent, were you moving my report?
Yep.
And seconder, Councillor Palloon. All those in favour?
Aye.
The motion is carried. Now we're going to move into public excluded. Councillor Campbell, seconded by Councillor Bowyer, and we're just going to have a break for 15 minutes. Thank you.
Respect.